So today what we're going to do is build these characters out with some 3D printed joints that I made, some PVC pipe, and of course whatever clothing that you choose to make whatever character you want. And then you're able to change the height and the width and everything of that character with some simple parts. So let's get into this DIY project and see what it's all about. So as of now, the spooky season's upon us, and I decided the characters I'm making again from last year, except I revamped them, is Lock, Shock, and Barrel. As you can see, the clothing is here, all the stuff to make them, and then I have stuffing to kind of fill out their costumes. But what I ended up making here is I took PVC pipe and some 3D printed parts that I designed and put it together to kind of make the skeleton of the figure. So I started off with I believe it was like a 10-foot stick of PVC, 1-inch IPS. This is JM Eagle, and it's not the actual heavy schedule, it's the thinner stuff. And the reason why I chose the thinner stuff over the heavier schedule is because it was a lot cheaper. So it was cheaper and I could go with the bigger diameter. The reason why I wanted the bigger diameter is just so that way there's no drooping of the parts. Half-inch, after you get out so far, it'll start to bend or bow. Storing the pipe, like if you put it in a storage container after it's cut down to size, half-inch could, slowly start bending. So the larger diameter will keep its structure and it just looks better. So that's why I chose the larger diameter. Also, the larger diameter helped me with my design here in the friction fit. Okay, so everything you see is friction held in place. And each one of these basically inserts into the socket with friction. The issue with the friction fit is when you 3D print, each 3D printer will have a different outcome as to the tolerance. Therefore, I actually designed some other iterations to kind of help mitigate that, where there would have a friction tab here that pushes friction on there. And if your thing is larger, it would actually bend out the tab a little bit, allowing you to still slide this into place. So those are just some of the design changes I have made, because when this gets pressed into here, it relies on friction to allow this ball to kind of cup in the tube. So that ball end actually is resting in between here, which means that this cut needs to be flush. If it's not flush and it's kind of at an angle, you won't get the friction fit that you need to kind of like hold this into place. You'll get more of something like this. Of course, I pulled it out so that way you could see how it just like, dangles there if it don't have any friction. Another fail-safe I've actually incorporated was if for whatever reason over time your diameter isn't consistent and the heat of your garage or whatnot kind of deformed it a little bit, those tabs should actually hold up and apply friction. But in case they don't, I've actually incorporated some screw holes here. So you could actually drill a screw through here, self-tapping or whatever, number 8, and it'll actually pinch that this wall and this face together, keeping everything in place, so you don't have to worry about any future issues. Did it for the bottom too. So as you can see, I only put one screw here, one screw there. Now this thing could rotate to whatever I want it to rotate to, but it'll also keep this stiff, this ball stiff if you're trying to like make the arm kick out or rotate it up and down, because now the only thing that will move is this socket here. So if I wanted the arm to kick out like that, it'll hold in place a lot better. If I want to rotate it, I can rotate it. If I rotate it past the threshold, as you can see, this one starts rotating. Watch, look at this cup here. You'll see that rotating like that. So I could still rotate, infinite amount, just as long as you don't add a screw into this section. And you could do the same for all these joints if you're trying to account for more rotation other than the 90 degrees that this will allow. So the way this is constructed is I took whatever costume I have for each one of these, laid it out flat. So these guys were actually laid out flat like this. And so the pants were here, and then I cut the tubes to the proper length so that way they would fit in between the legs, from the crotch area to the top. So this is right where the neckline is. I maximized it so that way there's no droopiness in the costume. And then I have this pull here for the mask to mount to. Okay, so I did that for all three of them independently because lock, shock, and barrel are different heights. And then also I made this one extra long because shock will have the witch hat, which I have the tube going up through the center to keep it upright. Another thing I designed differently is the feet. So if you look at the feet, these are Shock's boots, her boots. So those feet fit in here. And then Lock's shoes are these little red ones, which will fit in those small ones as well. And then Beryl actually has booties. So I didn't make him have shoes. I got this skeleton costume here, right here, which these booties are filled out with this larger diameter. Of course, I made this where it comes out so that way I could put weight in there like sand or something and then glue it back on in case I want to stand these figures up. Right now they're sitting. The issue is these feet are too tiny proportionally for the large body. I got them to work last year. Of course, this was a complete redesign, but similar fashion. I got them to work last year to stand up. But if someone bumped into them, they would fall. That being said, I could also fill up these legs with sand to kind of give it a little bit of lower weight or lower center of gravity in the figures themselves. So Locke's costume is basically a two-piece. All this is kids clothing, so it's fairly cheap. So these are like kids pajamas or whatever, different sizes. So depending on how big you want your characters, like this is a 2T, so a toddler size. These are 2T as well. And then this is supposed to glow in the dark, but this onesie for Beryl is 18 to 24 months. And then for Shock, she has just a lavender dress here, like that. Okay, and the size that I got, in case you're wondering, if you're making these figures, you probably won't make them this year just because you'll have to figure out, you know, the clothing, and it'll take some time to get it. So it doesn't actually say, I don't recall what size. Like I said, I got this stuff last year and I built them out, but it doesn't say on the collar either. If I had to guess, this one is 18 to 24 months. This one's probably like 1 year or so, of course, because she's taller. And then her leggings are these. So this is 4 years. Okay, so the leggings are 4 years, so this might even be a 4-year-old. Now for the boots, these I got on eBay. A lot of people are selling baby clothes that weren't even used, you know, because kids don't wear out these items. But if you look closely, that's the size, number 5, 12.5 is the size for Shock shoes. And they're pretty decent just because, I mean, their bodies are not proportionate to their feet. They don't actually have a size on them, but they're a little bit smaller than these little boots. So these are number 5s or the 12.5, whatever they were. Yeah, 12.5s or 5s. So I don't know how the sizing on kids are, but these are similar in size. So maybe these were like 4s or something. I know these were a little bit smaller when I got them, but I just went off of length and how I kind of wanted to scale these guys. Last year I ended up getting this black witch hat because she has like a lavender colored one. Can't really find those, and the ones that they do have are like $80. But I got this black one, and then I used these pipe cleaners and I extended them. So I put 2 together last year and then just crinkled them up, and then it created, you know, her hair, her whacked out hair, because she's Shocked. So that being said, this year I actually picked up a purple one, so a little bit closer. They got different brim sizes, and that's why you also want to keep that long, just so that way you could have this upright and then kind of just play around with it. You could also keep this short and use like a coat hanger if you want it a weird angle. You could also leave it long like that, and then also like loop a coat hanger in there to kind of give it some wacky curvature, and then just keep that as its structure, since it's a smaller diameter anyway compared to this width. And then for the hands, all I did was I got gloves, these little gloves, kids gloves, maybe a couple years old for the size. These were pretty cheap on Amazon as well, to kind of complete the costume without having to do too much. And then these I just put at the end of the tubes like such. So you just open this up and then slide them on. You just slide them on like that, and then you could stuff them with that stuff just to kind of fill out the fingers without having to have any 3D printed components. Another cool thing you could do if you don't screw certain areas down on the back side, so each one of these corners has a screw potential. If you don't decide to screw them down, you could actually leave maybe the screw off on the upright right there, on that piece right there. And if you leave it off, you could rotate your character in any direction to make him look like he's turning and facing the other guys. Or during Christmas time, you could have one of the characters doing a different position. So if you're interested in any of this build setup, the joints, the tees, and what have you, it's not just for the Halloween setup. You could use this for Christmas if you're trying to make a Grinch, if you're trying to make any of the claymation characters. I mean, you could do a lot just with this frame setup, especially with the articulation ability right here. So once you kind of get the components, then you could just build them out like Legos, you know, everything just pops into place, and you could extend things, make things longer, and go about it that way. So if you're interested in the 3D printed components, reach out to me in the About Me page. My email's in there. You can reach out to me, and I'll sell you a set of 3D printed components. The only thing that you have to be real considerate about is cutting these perfectly straight. So like that, is that a taper? This will work, but it won't be as stiff. So if you look into that area right there, you see the inside of the tube, the inside of that tube actually presses up against that ball to create friction. Okay, so if it's not completely 100% straight, then you're only gripping on this face here. So that tangent edge, you're only grabbing on half of it, so it's not going to be as stiff. Also, you want to slide these all the way on, so that way that presses up against the ball and creates a lot of friction. Okay, so this is what they look like after they're all assembled and everything, with the joints and the stuffing. Of course, some of it needs to be kind of fixed, just because, as you can see, the joint is kind of popping through, so I need to be able to connect it a little bit better. So I need the stuffing to kind of force over into that corner. But that being said, the mask isn't secure all the way. All I have is the post, and then on the back side, they just sit right there. What I think I'm going to do is 3D print a topper, so that way it could hold the strap just like a head. So what it's going to have is maybe a curvature right here, so that way the band could strap around that curvature, and then you could have characters like this. So one thing I highly recommend when you're stuffing any of your characters is don't use that paper stuff like I did. Maybe use some bubble wrap. That's kind of how I smoothed out his torso, is by using some of the bubble wrap, but as you can see, the other stuff is a lot more clumpy. So in order to get rid of that, you got to kind of squeeze it and form it. Okay. This one, it kind of smoothed out just because this is a heavier material, whereas this is like that spandex material, and it doesn't sit nicely. So just things to keep in mind is the fabric you choose. So if you choose thicker fabric and not this spandex material, it kind of doesn't matter. Same thing with hers. This material kind of leaves it clumpy, so something smoother will also imprint less than what you see here. For this particular character, in order to get the hair, all these are pipe cleaners. And this is a long tube, which I kind of hooked them into the hole up here and then draped them down and then crinkled them. So that way it gives them the hairstyle. Of course, there needs to be a band across the back, so that way it supports the mask a lot better. But I left the tube a lot longer, so that way it just holds it straight. What you can do is if you kept the top and you had a hanger, you could bend a hanger so that way the hat kind of zigzags around, which is something that I'm going to look into doing. And then also for the dress, to flare it out, if you had a coat hanger and then kind of made it into a ring, similar to how this hat is done. It's a wire that goes around to give it a flat brim. Do the same thing for the dress, maybe like in the middle or something, and it would drape over and kind of flare it out a lot better. So for the mask were actually from Spirit Halloween. They're just regular masks that for a costume that you would wear, and that's what I used. Of course, you could do the face behind it. That's going to take a lot more skill and a lot more artistry to make that happen, but it is doable. If you're trying to get something like this done quick, Spirit Halloween got those masks, and it's a lot more straightforward. As for the costumes themselves, that was all just kids clothing purchased on Amazon. This one here in particular glows in the dark. All this, the bones and stuff, it needs natural light to energize it, and then when you turn off the light, of course it glows a greenish color similar to the mask. But if you want it, you know, kind of true to the characters, you just got to do some research into the size of clothing you want and also the material it's made out of. So that's going to complete today's video on the joint setup that I created. If you like this content, give it a thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated. If you want to see content like this and other content I'll be posting in the near future, consider subscribing. Until next time, I'll see y'all in the next one. Thanks for watching.